I apologize for the delay, but we will be beginning shortly. If you could please find your seats. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight, and welcome to the District 3 Budget Town Hall. My name is Stacy Fitzgerald, and I serve as the Community Engagement and Constituent Services Coordinator for the County Executive's Office. I'll be your moderator for this evening. This town hall is part of our annual Budget Town Hall series and is your opportunity to let county leaders know what you and your communities think should be funded in the county's fiscal year 26 budget. This evening, we will hear opening remarks from your District 3 County Councilman, Nathan Volke. Then, County Executive Pittman and Budget Officer Chris Trumbauer will share a presentation about the county's investments and the outlook for the FY26 budget. After the presentation, we will open the floor for public testimony, and you will get a chance to share your thoughts. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the other elected officials we have in the audience tonight. In attendance tonight, we have Maryland Delegate Latoya Nkongolo. I'd also like to introduce our department directors who are here this evening. Skip Old, the CEO of the Anne Arundel County Public Library. Brandy Francis, and Karen Henry, who's just walking in. Hello, Karen. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Councilmember Nathan Volke.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, and apologies for being a little bit late getting up here from Annapolis. I think most of you know my legislative assistant, Sarah Gannon. She's walking around back there, but I point her out because there will inevitably be some things this evening that, while they may be budget related, are also community related, and so feel free to reach out to us. Sarah and I work on those issues together. I also start with Sarah because I wanted to open with a story. So a gentleman called our office earlier today, and he was talking to Sarah, and he said, "Does the councilman realize how much property taxes have gone up because of these assessments that we all just got?" And she said to him, "Yes, he does. He happens to live in the district. He got one too. He was in here complaining about his this morning and how it went up 20%. And this guy was kind of shocked, and he couldn't believe that I deal with the same things you deal with. But guess what? We live in the county too, just like you. I live in this district. I live literally 3 minutes away from here. So I tell you that because if you want to tell me about how the tax burden is impacting you, I hear you loud and clear, okay? And the reason I raised that in the beginning too is because it's something that's on my mind a lot as we go into this current budget cycle. So we've seen a number of years where the budget has grown a lot, and we've also seen the economy growing a lot, but we're starting to see some signs that things may be slowing down. Obviously, the real estate market has not been as bananas as it was for a couple years. I think about people who are on fixed incomes like Social Security. I looked it up on my way over. 2.5% is what Social Security went up this year. So when we think about the increase in the size of the budget, one of the things that I saw recently was the Spending Affordability Committee's recommendations. They think the county can afford to spend 4.9% more this budget than we spent last budget. And I'm troubled by that. I'm troubled by it because when I think about people who are on fixed incomes, people who have only so much money coming in, people who are older, people who are retirees, people who are military veterans, I think to myself, how does this impact them when we're taking a bigger and bigger piece of the pie that they have to spend? So when we talk about all the great things we want the government to spend money on, and I think that's important, that's part of why we're here, the flip side of it is, what does it cost? Excuse me. So I can tell you that the blueprint for education that is state law is chewing a hole into the state budget to the tune of $3 billion, okay? And that's projected to go to $6 billion by the time we get to 2030. So that is something that is a massive state problem where they're either going to have to cut parts of the program, they're going to have to cut other parts of the budget, or they're going to have to find a way to put new taxes on us. And that's just the state side. That's not dealing with things that we're doing here in the county. And we have increased, I did not vote for these, but the county council has increased income taxes a few times in the last 5-6 years. We've gone over the property tax cap twice, which has reset that tax cap and increased the number that we're able to get from constituents. And every time you do that, it resets it. So you aren't just looking at one piece for 1 year, you're looking at a continual reset of that amount of money. So as we go into this budget cycle, and I'm going to listen to everybody and the things that they want the county to spend more money on, if you have suggestions on ways the county can save money or spend less money, I welcome those too, because I don't normally hear them. This is our 6th year, the county executive and I doing this. I believe it's 6, right? 6, yeah, 6th year. And I think in those 6 years, I've probably heard from 3 or 4 people in all that time who say they want the county to spend less money. By and large, everybody has things they want us to spend money on. Now, that's our job, allocating scarce resources. That's what government is about. But at the end of the day, if we can find things to do more efficiently, let's do that. I think that when we look at the budget, we have to look at what the impact is of the amount we're taking out of your pocket and not just how we're spending everything. So when we approach the budget, if we simply say, well, let's figure out how much we need and then we'll figure out how much to tax the people, that's not the way I look at budgets. And that's never been the way I've looked at them, and that's part of the reason that I haven't voted for all the budgets, because candidly, there have been a number of them that I'm concerned they're growing too big too fast. So with that, I look forward to hearing all of your concerns, your feedback, and the things you want to see us do, and I appreciate you coming out this evening. Thank you.
But you have voted for some counties are as high as 10%. City of Annapolis, counties are as high as 10%. City of Annapolis as high as 10%. So every year we have to make a decision as to whether or not we keep that 2% homestead tax credit. That's if it's your primary home and you've applied for your homestead tax credit. So please do apply for it if you're living in your primary home and you don't have it, because that has a huge impact. I don't want to talk too much about taxes, but I will say that one of the things on income tax that we always think about is what the rate is at various income levels. So while this county did in our first budget, actually this is the 7th that we have 7 and then 8 and then somebody else will be county executive after that. So the way we do income taxes and the way they're done at the federal and the state level is we've started to do them progressively. They weren't letting counties do them at different rates for different incomes. So on your first $50,000 of income, you pay a lower rate than you used to. We lowered that. And on your income between $50,000 and $400,000 for an individual, or $480,000 I think it is for a family, you pay another rate. And then if you're for your income above $480,000, then you're paying the 3.2% that is what a lot of other counties, half the counties in Maryland, are paying. So we still have lower property and income tax rates than all of the central Maryland counties, and we're proud of that, and we want to keep it that way. But I have made it known in my weekly letter last week, I guess, if you read it, that I don't like these town halls. It's not really true that I don't like them. I love hearing from you. I love all of you, and I know that y'all have great ideas, but what I don't like about them is that we know, and you'll see from Chris Trumbauer's budget presentation, that there's a limited amount of money that we have to work with, and we have to say no a lot, and that's the hardest part of the job, of course. So I listen, you listen, I take notes. Nathan, I'm sure, will be taking notes, but it's a really uncomfortable job to say no. on stuff that I don't think there's probably not going to be anything that we hear that isn't worthy of funding. I just don't know that all of it will get funded. So with that, I will pass it over to Chris Trumbauer, who is our friendly neighborhood, I think he calls himself, budget officer, former council person. So he's had to make these kinds of decisions in the past, and he's going to give you a sense of where the county stands fiscally and what that means for this year's budget.
Great. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Thank you, Mr. Councilmember Volke. And, you know, it's true, Nathan hasn't voted for all of the budgets, but he's voted for a couple, and we thank him for that. But he sure does like showing up to the ribbon cuttings, so we thank him for that, too. All right, so I'm going to start off. So I'm Chris Trumbauer. I'm the budget officer. I have like a half an hour slideshow that I'm going to do in 15 minutes, okay? And I want to start off with the timeline, because this is really important. We're doing 8 budget town halls now in January and February. And the reason we're doing them now is, if you see on this chart, no decisions have been made yet. So we're getting public input before anything comes to the county exec and his budget team, before we make any decisions, before we submit our capital budget or our operating budget, because we want to know feedback from the community, what's important, maybe projects that are under our radar. And so as you can see from this, the review and recommendation phase, that doesn't even start till February and March, and then decisions really are in March and April. So we've got time to listen, catalog the feedback, and then act. So the next slide is going to show you a little bit of the process. So you can see it starts right about now. We'll be getting our departmental requests for all the county budget departments. Give us, hey, this is what we need to do this year. There's an internal review process that the budget office leads, and then we make recommendations to the county exec's decision-making team, and ultimately the county executive decides what to submit into the budget that gets delivered to the county council on May 1st. And then you see where there's the color change, right? That's because after we submit the budget, then it's in the hands of the county council, and it's under their control for the next 45 days. So they have a county auditor. They all review the budget. They check our work. They look at our math. They see if there's any mistakes. They get new information. Then they come up with amendments to the budget, hopefully to make it better. And then if there's anything that needs to be added, the county executive can introduce what's called supplemental amendments to take some cost savings and apply them to new things. And then the council votes on it by June 15th. It becomes adopted at the start of the fiscal year, which is July 1st. So it's a pretty condensed timeline, but we get a lot of work done. All right, so this is going to show you where the funding comes from. And you heard a little bit in the opening remarks, the two biggest places that we get revenue, income tax and property tax. Those two together are about 75% of our overall revenue. Now, we also get some from real estate taxes. We have some fees, and we have some local sales taxes, and we get some support from the state and things like that. But as you can see from the proportions here, those two big slices of the pie, that's where most of the action is. And it adds up to $2.3 billion is our current year budget that we are halfway through right now. On the other side of the books, where does the money go? What's that big blue slice right there? That's our friends at the Board of Education. So about half of our budget goes to support the public school system pretty consistently every year. Other big slices of the pie there are our public safety core group, our land use core group, and then what we call government operations or general government. Those are things like the Central Services Department and the Finance Department, the Budget Office, and things like that. All right, so we're halfway through the current budget year. It's fiscal 2025. I wanted to remind us all a few of the highlights from the existing budget. One of the priorities was increasing our investment in public safety. We're very proud that we were able to raise the starting salary for police officers to $70,000. That was the highest in the state. We also increased the operations support for both police and fire departments so that they could run more overtime shifts and could support their operations more. We maxed out our reserve fund, which is called the Rainy Day Fund. This is money that we are able to hold back for future economic downturns or recession so that we don't have to necessarily close down services or lay off workers or stop important programs. We have that funding to plug in for a gap. We can only access that if we don't meet our revenue projections, okay? So we can't just grab that money for something we want to do. It's in our charter that we have to, certain triggers have to be met there. We are also able to extend some really critical programs, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a future slide. But we got $112 million from the feds for the stimulus money after the federal recovery money during the pandemic. Almost all of that was to support county operations during the pandemic. Some of those were new social safety net programs or health outreach programs, and they weren't necessarily addressed just to COVID. They were overall health needs. We found a lot of those are really effective. They're helping people, and we want to continue them, but the federal money's gone, so we've got to transition them over to the county side. We're also able to fully fund the Board of Education's compensation request for the educators, for their salaries, and then we maintained our AAA bond rating from all three bond rating agencies, so we keep that up. That's like the gold star from them, saying that the county is running their fiscal management very well and that we're a good investment. All right, the next couple slides, I'm going to show you what we're all wondering. Well, Pittman talked about our taxes, but what are our neighbors paying, right? Well, I've got some good news for you. We're a pretty good deal in Anne Arundel County compared to our neighbors. In these graphs, we are the gold bar, okay? And then all the other counties, there's 23 other county jurisdictions, they're blue. And what you can see here is property tax. So we pay in Anne Arundel 98.3 cents per $100 of assessed value. And remember when the county executive talked about that homestead credit, you're getting an assessment that might be at this level, but if you've been in your house for a while and you've had that homestead credit, you're not paying that full assessment, okay? Because it can only go up 2% a year. So even if your house appraisal or your assessment goes up 10 or 20%, it's only raising 2% a year. That creates a buffer, okay? So anyway, it's 98.3 cents per $100 of assessed value. You can see the fine print here. I don't expect you to read. But everybody to the left of us is a county that's paying more in terms of property tax rate. And those are all the other big counties. Howard, Baltimore County, Prince George's, the city, Montgomery, Carroll County, Frederick, all of those guys, they're all paying more. The only counties that are paying less in terms of the property tax rate are typically rural counties on the Eastern Shore or Western Maryland. Next slide, this is the income tax side. Now this one is a little bit busy, it's a little bit complicated, but it's the same thing, okay? We're in gold, and everybody on this side of us, on the left, they're paying a higher rate. Now, the reason it's a little bit complicated is because we are the one of only 2 jurisdictions that has a progressive tiered structure. That means that the amount of income that you make gets taxed at different levels. As the county exec mentioned, up to, as an individual, up to $50,000, you're paying 2.7%. That's pretty low. In between $50,000 and $400,000, which is the vast majority of county taxpayers, you're paying 2.94. And then for anybody that's fortunate enough to make more than $400,000 of taxable income a year, you're paying 3.2%, but only on that level above 400. So if you make $410,000 a year, you're paying 2.7 on your first 50,000. Then up until 400, you're paying 2.94, and then only on that $10,000 above 400 are you paying that higher rate, 3.2%. Now, if you're a billionaire, then you're paying that 3.2% on a lot more, right? So you can see how that lays out. Again, we're the 5th lowest in the whole state. So if you look at that average rate, that 2.94, and how it stacks up, there's only 4 other counties that pay a lesser rate than us: Cecil, Garrett, Talbot, and Worcester. None of them, I would think, are very comparable to the services that you get in Anne Arundel. Next slide is going to show you our recordation and transfer tax. This is the real estate taxes that we pay. Over on the far left of the screen, you see that kind of mountain that goes up and down. That was the housing bubble, and then the Great Recession followed. Remember that? I was on the county council for that. That wasn't very much fun. So anyway, it went down, and then you see kind of some moderate growth. It recovered, and then all of a sudden, a few years back, we see another, goes way up. Well, luckily, we knew that wasn't sustainable, so even though that revenue went way up, we didn't budget for that level because we knew it would come down. We just didn't know when. Well, guess what? It came down. It came down fast. And so we've been budgeting to this level, so we're not losing out on revenue. But if you think about it, just a few years back, we were making $200 million a year of revenue from real estate taxes. That's now down closer to 120, so that's $80 million less. And that's probably what we're going to budget for again this year. The housing market will recover, but probably not until mortgage interest rates get a lot lower than they are now. If you're like me, you're sitting on a pretty low mortgage rate, you're not buying another house at 6.5%, right? Unless you have to. That's tough. All right, this is a visual representation of our revenue reserve fund. The county executive proposed and the county council supported increasing the maximum amount that can be. Way back in the day, we were at 5%. We've gradually raised that to 8%, which I think is a pretty good level. This is, again, money held in reserve, but we can only access it during an economic downturn. So the orange bars are the maximum level that it can be, and then the blue line is the actual funding level. So this administration, under this county executive, has a policy to maximize that every year, and we've been consistent there. All right, the next series of slides, we're going to talk about some of the investments we've made over the course of time. And so these graphs are going to show the last 20 years of budgets, okay? And what you're looking at is the percent growth compared to that baseline, which we just set at 20 years ago. So that happens to be 2005, okay? So you can see that it was kind of moderate, and then when the change of administration happened in between the fiscal 19 and fiscal 20 budget, that's where that dotted line is, okay? So that's where the Pittman administration took over. And you can see an increase there. This is our public safety department. So fire's red, sheriff is gold, police is blue. Came up with that color scheme myself. And that is going to show you the dramatic investment over the last 6 budgets. Because when the county executive came in, he wanted to support public safety. There had been a lot of talk about how we were underfunding public safety. We were kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit, and so we've dramatically increased that in all 3 departments since the fiscal 2020 budget. Similarly, this is the Recreation and Parks Department. This is their operating budget. So this isn't their capital budget. It's not where we build parks. This is where we pay for the operations and the salary of the people and all of that. So this is interesting because it was kind of at a certain level, and then during the Great Recession, it actually went down, okay? Like the Parks Department got cut during the Great Recession. And then it took about 5 or 6 years even to recover back to where it was in 2009, okay? And then the county executive, Pittman, came on board. I think he had been around the state and seen some of the other parks and some of the other places and said, man, we need some of that. And so that first bar, you see kind of a dramatic increase. Then there was a dip. That was the COVID pandemic, because remember, a lot of programs got shut down, right? So they weren't running a lot of summer camps. They weren't doing a lot of swim stuff and everything like that. So you see that dip. But then it goes right back up because we've added new parks, we've added new programs, and we've invested in that. This next slide is going to show the Board of Education funding. Now, Board of Ed is interesting because we don't have as much control of that, okay? We give, basically, the Board of Ed, we give them a big check for their appropriation, and then they have their own Board of Education, which is essentially a Board of Directors, and then they apply that and they administer those funds. So this is just kind of showing the aggregate amount of operating support that we have given to the Board of Ed. And again, you can see recently, big increase there. Now, part of that is because of the Blueprint for Education and the state mandates. But part of it is also because this administration has realized that we had some catching up to do. And that was specifically in a few roles. We've invested in pre-K, we've invested in behavioral health, like school psychologists and counselors and things like that, and we've invested in special education. So those ramped up even before the mandate kicked in for the Blueprint. We're still trying to hire classroom teachers, but there's really not a pipeline, to hire everything that we'd like to. But we've made a lot of progress in filling some of the vacancies that they've had. So a lot of forward progress on Board of Ed. Next slide is going to show us. This is again, it's 3 departments. We call it kind of the Health and Human Services core. But what you're seeing, the purple is Department of Health. The kind of greenish color is Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, which does a lot of outreach. And then Department of Social Services is in pink. And you see over the last few years a dramatic increase. And part of that, or most of it, is related to the fact that we were able to start some new programs with the federal recovery funds. Those have been tremendously successful. So these jumps in the bar represents the county taking over some of those programs to keep them going and helping people. So it's been a big investment there. And then finally, I want to show you the funding for affordable housing. This has been a big priority of the Pittman administration, and you've got two dotted lines there. The first shows you when the county exec was elected, and you see kind of a big jump up there. But then the other big jump is when we created a few years back the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that is funded by a special assessment of the real estate tax only on real estate transfers that are more than $1 million. So that goes into a special fund, and it goes to help build affordable housing projects for constituents. All right, so let's turn our lenses locally a little bit. You have a great advocate for your district in Councilmember Volke. Here's just a smattering of some of the projects that are currently funded in the fiscal year 25 budget. You can see a lot of transportation stuff, some watershed improvement projects, whole bunch of school improvements in the various schools, and then lots of recs and park stuff. Even got a dredging project in there. I don't know where Sloop, Eli, and Long Coves are, but they're apparently getting dredged out, so that's good news for them. All right, so now here's what we're here for. Let's look in Trumbauer's fiscal crystal ball. What do we see on the horizon? It's kind of a good news, bad news thing, but the revenue picture at the moment is stable. We've got about half a year through in this fiscal year. Revenue is coming in right as we projected, okay? So we've heard the doom and gloom from the state. They have a big budget deficit. They're scrambling. We are not in that situation, okay? We've had conservative budgeting principles. We've been very smart, and our fiscal foundation is very strong, and revenue is coming in pretty much on track. We are worried about that slice of the pie I showed you at the beginning that was the state funds, right? We've heard a lot of potential about state cutbacks to some programs, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. There's also, obviously there's uncertainty whenever there's a big presidential transition, but this is going to be a pretty drastic transition between the macroeconomic policies of the Biden administration and those of the incoming Trump administration. We've heard about tariffs. We've heard about reducing the federal workforce. We've heard about mass deportations, which could affect the labor force. So all of those things could have and potentially will have an effect on local county revenue as well. All right, so on the expenditure side, what do we see looking forward? We have had growth in the last couple years, and part of that has been because of the high inflation and wage growth. We've been paying our employees more, and that has a tail, right? Because we also have health care and pension costs, and we have to pay that as well. And because it's been a good job market, we've had less vacancies, and that means we have less turnover savings, what we call, when we're not fully staffed. And then there's been those operational increases. So we've taken over, some more facilities. We've opened up more parks. We've expanded some of our public safety operations. All those have a cost. They're important things. We want to fund them, but that all adds up. And then, of course, in bold at the bottom is Board of Education funding, which has increased and will continue to increase along with the mandates with the Blueprint for Education. All right, so next, real quick, I'm going to go through a little exercise, and this is designed to show you a little bit of what it's like to be in the county executive's shoes. So this is super small print. You might be not able to see it. You can download this presentation later, and you can look through it. But this kind of gives you a glimpse of what we have here. These are some of the expenditures that we are projecting for the upcoming year, okay? And so at the very top, you see at the moment, we're projecting we could have as much as $100 million of new incremental recurring revenue, okay? That's money, additional revenue that we're getting this year compared to last year, okay? That's pretty good. $100 million is a good year, okay? Sounds like a ton of money to me. So at the top, we have these what we call non-discretionary expenditures. So this is things like our debt service, health insurance, our self-insurance fund, the incremental cost of our pay packages. We have our vehicle rate adjustments, like all these boring things that make government work that we have to pay and they adjust every year, right? I'm going to put a rough ballpark of that's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million, okay? Don't hold me to that because that's just a rough estimate. It's going to be about $30 million, okay? So remember, we started with 100, yay! Now we're knocking 30 right off the bat. That's 70. That's still a lot of cake, right? That's a lot. We can do a lot, okay? Then we got to pay our employees, right? So we got our bargaining units, we got our non-reps, we got our contractual employees. We want to be fair to them. We want this county to be an attractive place to work. So we have to put our pay packages together. We're in negotiations now. I don't know what that number is going to be, but just for context, I can tell you last year, the pay packages totaled up to be about 18 million, okay? So let's just round that up again and say, okay, if we're going to do something similar, maybe it's 15 million this year, maybe it's 20, but now we're at 70. Let's take 15 off, right? Now we're at 55, okay? Still a lot of money, 55, that's good, all right? Now we get to the adjustments and supplemental things. These are things we can add to the budget. Remember, we got 55 million. We got all of you guys are going to ask for really cool stuff. County exec, Nathan Volke, taking notes, right? All right, I'm going to burst our bubble a little bit. The superintendent's request for Board of Education, just of itself, $94 million of new county money. That's almost double what I just told you we will have as a pool to allocate to all the requests. That doesn't include the other stuff. Our libraries, our community college, our departments are going to request for increases for their operations or provide services for people. So all that has to come out of that pool of about, right now, $55 million. Now, those numbers could change. We've got a few more months of revenue projections, and things could happen for better or for worse. So that might not be entirely what it's like, but it gives you an idea of how he and his team are going to have to make some tough decisions on what to fund this year. All right, so I'm going to wrap up with just a couple other comments on some of the pressures on the budget. So we are still operating in an environment that's a little bit higher inflation that we'd like, around 2.5%, 3%. Target inflation, I'm told by really smart economists, is about 2%. We've got that deficit in our recurring revenue because the real estate market is still depressed, right? Remember that slide that showed we're $80 million from where we were a couple years ago? I think the natural place to be if we had lower mortgage interest rates would be somewhere around maybe 150 million. So that's about 30 million less than where we are right now. And then we've got the potential for state budget shortfalls. We've got our incremental increases in things like debt service and health insurance and pension. And then we've got our departmental base budget increases to fund expanded operations and services that we've committed to. So those are all the pressures. Now, I know you probably are sick of hearing from me, and you probably zoned out about 10 minutes ago, so I have good news for you. Lots of resources available. You can go back at your own time and look at this presentation. You can look at other things. We have a really cool tool called the Budget Buddy, which is BUDDE. That's the Development and Data Explorer. You can zoom into individual county departments and see what their budget looks like. We also have the Your Budget page where you can get this presentation and you can see a lot of cool stuff. And then we have our Open Arundel page where you can get a lot of data and information. And then finally, I just want to remind us all, we're having these things because public feedback is important. We're going to listen to what you have to say. For those of you that come up to the mic, if you're shy or you don't want to speak to us, that's fine. Send us an email. Every email is read. Every email is cataloged. If you have friends or neighbors that couldn't come tonight, tell them. Send the feedback, right? We want to hear from you. This county executive in particular loves hearing public feedback, so we want this process to be open and transparent. So with that, I will thank you for your time. I will get out of your way, go sit in the back and listen, and turn it back over to Stacy to moderate some public comment. Thank you.
I need a box to stand on. Now it is time for the public testimony portion of the evening, where we get a chance to hear from you. This is your chance to let county leaders know what you would like funded in the FY26 budget. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to give their testimony. You will see a timer on screen to help you keep track of time. For the sake of time, the county executive and council member won't respond to every comment, but they are listening and taking notes. I will begin by calling the names of the people who signed up to speak when they checked in this evening, starting with residents of District 3 and followed by everyone else who signed up to speak. I'll call a few names at a time. When I call your name, please line up in that order behind the microphone. After we've gotten through the list of people who have signed up to speak, we will open the floor for anyone else who would like to share their budget requests. If we don't have time to hear from you tonight, or you think of something else you would like to share, please email your responses to budgetcomments@aacounty.org. That's budget-comments@aacounty.org. I will now call on several of you. Please line up behind the microphone in order to speak. Furthermore, please speak directly into the mic so that everyone can hear you clearly, and please state your name before you begin. We could first have Sue Weidman, Chuck Thompson, Tim Swan, Joanna Doty, and Thomas Marston. I apologize for any pronunciation issues.
Test, test. Good evening. My name is Sue Weidman. I am a District 3 resident and a volunteer at Animal Care and Control. Thanks to your efforts, Mr. Pittman, I understand that there's going to be an amicable but happy divorce. And by this, I mean the animal shelter and the county police department. The shelter has had a respectful, professional, but kind of awkward relationship with the police department that oversees it. It makes sense for the shelter to be an independent department. It makes sense for the police to not have to monitor an animal shelter and focus on their priorities. This is an exciting prospect that will increase both the authority and the responsibility of the shelter's leadership. We thank the new administrator, Ms. Claudia Roll, who's also very supportive of this initiative. Becoming its own department still will require the council's support of many legislative changes, additional administrative personnel, and funds, in addition to the 4 new operational positions currently already requested for the 2025 budget year. Please let us volunteers know, the purple shirts, how we can help in any way. We hope the shelter and the police will continue working together on crossover issues after our breakup. We are grateful for our police officers who help us when a stray pet is found by a citizen after hours and when employees have left for the day. No matter how late it is, officers meet these citizens outside the shelter and take the lost pets inside where they're safely housed overnight. We hope these compassionate acts of kindness by police officers can continue after the shelter becomes a separate department. We thank them for the support. We thank you, sir, and thank you.
Hi, Chuck Thompson. I'm here tonight because I asked myself a question. If government spending is supposed to make things better, then how come things have not improved? As I was collecting some information I will share in a moment, I couldn't find any forum where this was being discussed. So in the name of transparency and accountability, I'm asking you to initiate oversight hearings where our representatives can ask your department heads to account for their programs. To gain the perspective, I went back 10 years to look at some trends. If you look at the county's budget books, as of 2025, the population is 7% higher than from 2015. Yet general fund is 72% higher. This difference equates to additional $3.8 billion in government spending that has been taxed away from residents who cannot use their earnings to service student debt, buy a house, raise children, offset inflation, etc. Let's examine the state of employment, health, and education to see where our money is bought. As of 2023, there are smaller percentages of residents working. This equates to a smaller percentage of residents carrying the tax load. Looking at birth and death rates in the county, through 2022, the percentage of births has been dropping while the deaths have been increasing. For a second data point, you see the same trends in the general fertility rate and life expectancy. Lastly, education. To align with the Maryland scorecard, I'm starting with FY19. After 5 years, student enrollment is only up 1%, staff is up 11%, and expenditures are up 39%. Despite major increases in staff and expenditures, student performance has dropped, particularly SAT scores and on-time graduation rates. But more concerning is the proficiency scores in English, algebra, science, and social studies. They're 63, 10, 47, and 46% respectively. None of these areas are heading towards a good place. What's going on? You're in a position to shine a light on these issues and do something about it. Please arrange for these oversight hearings. Thank you.
Hello, County Executive Pittman, Councilman Volke. Thanks once again for holding this town hall to hear constituent views on budget matters. For the record, my name is Tim Swan, 30-year-plus resident of Pasadena, educator, and unified sports coach at Northeast High School. So we appreciate your support of past Board of Education budgets. And Mr. Pittman, after reading your column last week regarding town halls and humility, yes, some of us actually do read them on occasion, I have a new appreciation of the challenges you face with those who fully advocate for, at town halls, get what they want, but still maybe not be satisfied with the outcome. Anyway, despite that, my ask tonight is to support and maybe even enhance the proposed Board of Education budget for the coming year. As a member of the Teachers Association, I advocate sustaining and retaining all educators, including our most experienced ones. To do this, please fully consider funding the increased number of regular and special educators requested by Superintendent Bedell. In fact, by doing so, you'll simultaneously support, yes, I know the blueprint, we've heard that, mandates, but also help sustain and support teachers like myself, whose job hasn't gotten any easier in the past few years. Thank you. Now, on a different topic, last year I spoke at the very same town hall and mentioned something near and dear to my heart as a high school unified sports coach, the lack of permanent bocce courts in Anne Arundel County. Yes, currently there are none in any Anne Arundel County park, while there are 14 county high school bocce teams every year that graduate athletes with and without disabilities who have no place to play locally. Now, there is good news. According to some recent communication with Rec and Parks, permanent bocce courts are now part of the proposed plans and upgrades for Lake Waterford. A tennis bubble, pickleball courts, but a power chair roller hockey rink is also included. So, if you're looking for things to cut, there are no Special Olympics Maryland statewide power chair hockey sport teams, anything. So I'm not sure who put that in the plan, but that's something you may want to look at and see about the needed money for that, while still supporting bocce courts, which I hear 4 are coming on the way. So I thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Doty, and I'm the branch manager of the new Riviera Beach Library, one of 2 libraries in District 3 alongside the Mountain Road branch. Since opening in April, the new Riviera Beach Library has seen record numbers of returning customers and new cardholders. In October alone, nearly 20,000 people visited our branch, making us the second busiest in the entire system. Our library, like every branch in the system, exists to support and empower our residents. In just the past week, library staff at our branch have helped customers type, print, save, and upload resumes to apply for jobs, connected a new homeschooling family to library premium resources to help them support their child's growth and education, and provided programs for all ages, from story time to senior hangouts and everything in between. These kinds of meaningful interactions happen every day across our library system, demonstrating the vital role we play in our community. I'm here this evening to testify in support of the library's budget and to advocate for additional critical staff positions to meet our most pressing needs. I'm proud to share that the usage of the library and its resources continues to grow. We are also proud to support county initiatives such as distributing free Chromebooks, providing Narcan and other public health resources, and helping prepare children for kindergarten. However, to keep pace with this increased demand and to address the evolving needs of our residents, we require additional positions. These roles are essential to ensure that we have highly trained staff who can deliver excellent service and to adapt to our community's changing needs. We also strive to be a highly efficient organization and the best steward of county taxpayer dollars. For these reasons, I ask for your consideration of our supplemental funding request. I want to extend my gratitude to County Executive Pittman and Councilman Volke for your unwavering support of the library, including market rate adjustments over the last 2 years. Finally, I invite everybody to visit the new Riviera Beach Library across the street from the Northeast High School. Thank you for your time and support.
Good evening, Mr. Pittman, Mr. Volke, Tom Marston, resident of District 3. I'm going to work on this from where Mr. Volke came into this conversation. The county is doing an excellent job with the environment efforts. But I think something's going to change. Federal government's probably going to pull back. State government's probably going to pull back. You're going to have less money to spend that's been handed to you to put into parks, into stream repair, into the gifts that go out to churches and to HOAs. Who's going to pick up the tab? The private sector could, but probably won't, because stormwater and erosion control credit funds 10% from the county for the effort that the private sector provides. There is no compensation of real value for what you do with plants. Most people in the private land are putting in plants as well as hardware. Consider what PG County does. They have a 30% compensation. They fund plants, they fund hardware, stormwater management activities. Both activities affect stormwater reaching the bay. If you want to find some savings, consider what Mr. Volke is saying. Who else could step in, help the budget manage environmental? Maybe the private sector. People like me and a number of watershed stewards invest hard money to make this happen. Consider this. Look into what people are currently doing with the monies that are being spent. Is the stormwater practice being utilized? If not, maybe you can come to me. Maybe you can come to the stewards. We'll give you a better alternative. Thank you for your time.
I now invite up the next five. Joseph Sapp, Raymond Hoff, Jared Kuchevsky, Jessica Hergenroder. And, I'm mixing up names, I apologize. Richard Hergenroder. Jessica will be in the next group.
Do I have to wait for the clock to start, to be fair? Or?
We'll start when you do.
Okay. All right. My name is Joseph Sapp. I'm known as Rob Sapp. And maybe most importantly, between the staff and the patrons, because that's where the real work is done. I would like to thank you, Councilman Volk. I would like to thank you, County Executive Pittman, for your support in many instances, even more than we've asked for in the recent years. Salary adjustments to create a parity for our staff, and your help with the Revere Beach, which we finally got opened this spring. The highest priority for our library in this year's supplemental funding is a request for certain critical staff positions to meet certain needs. Human resources, materials management, responsible for selecting and purchasing books and other resources, facilities management, and data analysis. And we hope we can count on you for support in those areas for our patrons. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I just found out about this meeting today, but I can speak for myself. I found out that I'm going to owe $4,000 in taxes this year, where last year it was $2,000 and something. Now I know you got to increase taxes, but does it have to increase that much? I know people personally that one lady, she ain't even buying heating oil because she don't have enough money to buy her prescriptions. And I help her out with food sometimes, and that's only one person. The state of Maryland raised registration for vehicles 70%. I mean, when you're only making so much money, you can only stretch it so far. Now, just judging by what's going on in this meeting, half the budget is the Board of Education. Now, my daughter is a teacher, and I can tell you right now, she don't make $100,000. So I agree with this gentleman that said make it, where is all the money going? And I don't know how much they make. So the teachers, they don't make that much money. But how much are the people above the teachers making? I mean, are you getting into like $400,000, $500,000? When you start going up the ranks, we don't know. And if that's the case, it's ridiculous. Prices of food, for God's sake. I don't know how people that work just at Walmart afford to pay for housing and pay for the food. I made good money all my life, and I just retired last week. And I'm thinking right now, I'm only making $36,000 a year on Social Security. And I'm thinking $4,000. Personally, I don't think it's going to make any difference with these meetings, but at least you hear the regular people saying what's going to happen. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jared Gruchewski. I'm a resident in the Creekstone Village community. I'm a first responder, an engineer, an active outdoor enthusiast, and a cyclist. The county in general, the world in general, needs to expand the amount of active transportation available to everybody. Active transportation allows people who don't have a car or can't drive to be able to get around, in addition to critical pieces of infrastructure such as public transit. We need to make sure that all of the county schools are connected with active transportation. Kids need to be able to get themselves to school. They can't rely on their parents to drive them. Parents who are sometimes working multiple jobs need to be able to let their kids get to school without having to worry about getting run over. Coming out of my community, I've been hit more than once by a car on my bike. We need to make sure that we not just fund, but expedite the Jumpers Hole Road project, not just for my safety, but for the safety of people who are going through this critical junction, because it is the main way to get across Maryland 100 and Maryland 10. It is the primary path from the majority of District 3 to the BNA Trail, which then opens up many possibilities, getting you up to Cromwell Station, where you can then hop on public transit, getting you down to Annapolis. It doesn't get you to the largest employer in the state, though. The government has a facility in Anne Arundel County that employs more people than any other facility in the state. And I can't bike there, and I can't take public transit to get there in a reasonable amount of time or when my work day starts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rich Hergenroder from Rivera Beach. Gentlemen, thank you for your continued fiscal responsibility. We look forward to a great year coming up here. I'm going to echo Jared's comments. I'm representing two groups tonight. One's bicycle advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. Just like he said, follow the walk and roll Anne Arundel plan, the Plan 24, Lands and Parks Preservation. You've heard about all these various plan activities for connectivity and bikes. But I've discovered another biker community. Can you believe that? When I was a high school boy, I rode my bike downtown Baltimore to work. When I was a college boy in Philadelphia, I rode to jobs there. When I lived in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, I rode my bike there. And I've discovered a new community here. I'm a bicycle repairman, a volunteer repairman for Wheels of Hope. We are located at the Crownsville Hospital. Last year, we delivered 430 bikes free of charge to people in need, mostly some kids, but mostly our average customer is about 30 or 40-year-old male who needs a bike to get to work. So I deliver these bikes to their places, and I'm discovering this whole community of people who don't have wheels. They lost their wheels. Obviously, they're in recovery, they're in treatment, they're trying to get to Ritchie Highway for jobs. The bike is the only way to get there. So we've got all these plans for all these trails. Thanks, I love trails. But if there are cuts, remember safety, safety, safety. My new brothers and sisters who have to use those bikes to get to work, they need crosswalks, traffic calming, safe access, and lane marking. Thank you. And on to my next subject. My friends at the Watershed Stewards Academy, we want to save trees. So thank you for allowing me to hug all those trees, plant those trees, but the invasive plants are getting them, and they're looking for a hire to coordinate the invasives and control them. We've got lots of volunteers. $3 million of volunteer effort went out last year for all their activity, and I'm really grateful for all the work they do. Thank you.
All right, if we could have Jessica Gagliardi, Jessica Shiflett, Stephen Lordy, Brian Holtzlander, and Joe Adivanola.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Jessica Gagliardi, and I'm a District 3 resident who volunteers at Arundel County Animal Care and Control. I've got a little less than 2 minutes, so I'll jump right into it. Our long-term budget goal is a new shelter for the county's homeless pets, perhaps even at the Crownsville Hospital site. While we don't expect such an ambitious project to be funded overnight, we do ask that the county start the multi-year process of planning and building a new one. Our current shelter was built about 25 years ago just to house homeless animals before their stray hold was up and they were euthanized. So you can imagine a building built for this is now woefully outmoded and unfixable. That's especially true now that the forested area where dogs were walked to give them respite from the shelter life have been wiped out by the current construction of the police building next to and behind the shelter. There's no land left to reconfigure and expand the current shelter. Planning a new building that meets today's standards is complex. We encourage the county to involve one of the companies that specialize in animal shelter design in any planning it does. We promise it'll be money well spent. In the shorter term, staffing continues to be an issue. We do appreciate the positions you've added, in particular the staff veterinarian, but she needs a vet tech to help her with the shelter's thousands of pets to restart its state-funded program of spaying and neutering the pets of lower-income county residents, which ultimately is going to reduce the shelter's intake. We also endorse the shelter's request for 3 other new positions: an adoption/special events coordinator, a support staffer for animal officers, and another animal care attendant. Your approval of these additional positions and of our ultimate goal of a new shelter would be deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jessica Shiflett. I am a lifelong resident of Anne Arundel County and a resident of District 3 for the last 20 years. Sorry, I don't have my blue schoolhouse polo on this year. It was too cold. I couldn't. But I would like to say thank you so much for what you guys did for our school health services staff last year. The retirement, the paid holidays, they were greatly appreciated by all of our staff. I would like to bring up that the 12-month county contractual nurses within the health department, they get 28 paid leave days in addition to their holidays, whereas school health services, which is 10-month county contractual, they only get 8 in addition to their 11. I would ask for it to be prorated for the 10-month versus the 12-month. And currently, 12-month county contractual nurses are able to carry over their unused leave days, whereas school health staff are not. So I would just ask for that as well, and perhaps it could be something that could be put in over a specific time period. It doesn't have to go in all at once, but that's all. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Stephen Lordy. First issue I'd like to discuss is the redesign of Mountain Road. Since I've been living in Anne Arundel County, there have been many severe accidents on the road where there's been fatalities and serious injuries. And there's long stretches of the road that there's no shoulder and they're unlit. And it's an accident waiting to happen. And I'm just wondering how many serious accidents have to occur before somebody does something about redesigning the road. And my next issue is why aren't people in Long Point on city water? I don't know what the line of demarcation is for people that are on city water versus people who are on wells, but we're living in one of the most densely populated areas in the United States, and we're on well water. And I don't understand why certain developments are on city water and certain developments are not. And so that's another issue that I would like you guys to take into consideration as far as funding, because there's really no excuse for people living in Long Point to be on well water. So those are the two issues that I'd like you guys to look into and see about funding. Appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Brian Holtzlander. I'm Vice President of County Professional Firefighters. I work just down the street in Jacobsville. So hopefully you don't have to see me when I'm at work, but if you do, hopefully you'll find a friendly face. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the importance of people and share with you a story about being prepared for changing conditions. I don't think any of us can, hear the stories and see the footage of the wildfires out, being affected. And certainly our hearts go out to all of those people. Anne Arundel County is a fantastic place to live and work. And while it's special, it shares the same conditions that are devastating the rest of the country. So I was a newer firefighter, probably about 5 years in, and I was working on an ambulance down Harold Harbor. My partner and I saw a column of smoke down by the water, and we followed it to where we found brush, beginning to burn. And maybe naively, my partner dropped me off with the intention I'd get geared up and I'd be ready to fight the fire with the engine, and he'd go back and get a brush truck, which is a piece of equipment that helps us to fight the fire. And I quickly realized after he left, and I watched how quickly this fire grew and consumed the acres between a couple of homes, how kind of helpless and useless I was just there by myself. And that's kind of my point. Is that, we need people to fight fires, and we need more of them. And I think, again, the same challenges that are affecting the rest of the country are going to continue to affect Anne Arundel County. So again, the point is that when you need people, there is no substitute, and we need to invest in the people to keep us safe and prepared in a changing world. Thank you.
Good evening, County Exec Pittman, Councilman Volke. My name is Joe Divinola. I'm president of Anne Arundel County Professional Firefighters and also a D3 resident. I'm happy to have Mr. Volke as my council member. He's been helpful to me and my neighbors. I'm here to talk about, so I represent close to 1,000 firefighters and paramedics, brave men and women that put their life on the line every day on every call, responding to every emergency, medical or fire throughout the county and surrounding jurisdictions. We work a 24-hour shift. We go in at 7 in the morning and get off at 7 the next morning. We spend many holidays, many birthday celebrations together at the station. We're a family. And along with that, those celebrations, a lot of us are doing the work of two firefighters. I commend County Exec Pittman for upping the staffing since he's been elected. Previously, we were going out the door on a fire engine with driver only. So in his cycle, we've been able to raise that to 3 people going out the door on a fire engine or a truck. But we're still not there. National standards. Especially the surrounding jurisdictions around us, they go out the door with 4 to 5 people on an engine or a truck. In Anne Arundel County, we operate out of 30 stations, and we may have 4 stations out of those 30 stations that go out the door with 4 people. So we're getting a lot of physical injuries. Along with that, mental health is a big thing with the fighters, and also January is Firefighter Cancer Month, and we just and cardiac issues too. We just had a member, 29 years in the job, 50 years old, come down with pancreatic cancer, and I just talked to him tonight, and he's going in for an operation, hopefully successful, 6-hour operation, and That's one of the things. 72% of our firefighters' line of duty deaths is caused by cancer, and January is Cancer Awareness Month for firefighters. Thank you, and I hopefully, we can raise the staff into the minimum levels, and hopefully be very successful at that. Thank you.
The next 5 are Brenton Maltese, Charis Cephas, C.J. Barnett Jr., Joanne Vaughn, and Ralph Youngs.
Good evening. My name, calm down over there. My name is Brendan Maltese from Creekstone Village, but you already know that because this is my 8th time speaking at one of these town halls. And look, I don't really want to be here. I already spend a lot of my evenings volunteering time to advocate on behalf of teachers and my community. My son is with me because I was out advocating last night, and I will be tomorrow as well. And I thought about just staying home, but I watch every one of these every year, and I know one thing. The budget will largely reflect the priorities raised here tonight. It's important to me and my family that the 2 things I'm here to speak on are funded, so here we are. The first is the education budget. My wife and I are both AACPS music teachers, and our son is not far off from being a public school student. Strong public schools are the bedrock of the community. We need to fill our dozens of vacancies by making teaching the type of career that is attractive. In Anne Arundel County, a place that is attractive to the best teachers. Pay, benefits, and working conditions do that, and your budget will directly impact those. Keep that in mind when you're making decisions over the next few months. The second thing I'm here to talk about is, of course, Jumpers Hole Road. It's now my 7th year asking for this, and even though it's in the budget and slowly moving along, I want to encourage both of you to stay on top of it so that it moves faster. I was recently the witness of a crash there, which the proposed traffic signal at Evening Star would have prevented. And despite the snow and frigid temperatures, there are still many people walking on this road with no shoulder, which should indicate to you that they're not just walking for the fun of it. This is a vital corridor for commuters of all types, and we deserve to be able to traverse it safely. You've heard concerns about this project, and all I have to say is that 25 years of nitpicking it into further delays hasn't made the road any safer for anyone. It's time. Thank you. Fix that road.
My name is Cher Cephas. I live in Pasadena, and my parents were both in the military, so I am a proud Broadneck High graduate. Because I'm an educator, my children will most likely graduate from Glen Burnie High or Meade High if my 3 youngest go into the ID program like my firstborn son. I have had the chance to hear the budget presentation a few times, thanks to the Board of Education meetings. I thank you for the thorough presentation tonight because it emboldens me to say, take another look for ways to increase revenue. If we want to have a county that has good police, strong firefighters, nice parks, then I am encouraging you to brainstorm ways to be creative with our revenue acquisitions. We know the blueprint is expensive, and if it's helping us keep good educators and get a little bit of extra money, then I don't mind contributing more so that we can have higher salaries and be more competitive to our neighbors. We're not next to Cecil. We're next to Howard. We're next to Montgomery. We're next to Prince George's. And that's the best way to keep them from poaching some of our best educators in the state. Last week, I was at the Board of Education meeting, and I asked them to ask you guys for more money. So now I'm asking you to support whatever they request, and if possible, I request that you add a line item to support social workers' pay parity and to add upgrades to Glen Burnie High School. I saw that presentation. I'm a District 3 resident, and I saw Chesapeake High and Northeast High, so Glen Burnie could use some renovations too. Would love that. And I would, ask you to fully fund whatever they request, and if you can, add more, so that Anne Arundel can build a better community for all residents. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vaughn, and I'm here as a board member of the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. I want to thank County Executive Pittman and Councilman Volke for the opportunity to share input on the FY26 budget. I want to thank you for your continued support of Anne Arundel County Food Bank, and I'm here tonight to ask that you once again include $1.5 million in financial support for the work of the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. Councilman Volke talked about allocating scarce resources, and some things here we've talked about are lovely and they're nice to have, but food is a have to have. The Anne Arundel County Food Bank distributes millions of pounds of food and basic necessities every year, which brings stability to low-income households in the county. There are more than 51,000 instances of service every month. Many working people in our community rely on resources from their local pantries that are provided by the Anne Arundel County Food Bank to keep food on the table. And providing nourishing food free of any charge ensures that families don't have to choose between eating and paying rent, or heating their houses, or paying for prescriptions, or a number of other survival essentials. Food is a basic need. As the mother of 4 and grandmother of 10, I know that children cannot learn, thrive, and grow if they are hungry. And as the mother and grandmother, I know that I can't be productive at work, in my community, or in my household if I am stressed about how I'm going to feed my family. So I want to thank you again for your support, and I want to encourage you to again invest in our community by providing $1.5 million in funding for the food bank. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about solving food insecurity this evening.
Hello, my name is Ralph Youngs. I'm a 50-year resident, a veteran, and a volunteer. I'm here to encourage your support for animal care and control in the fiscal year 26 Anne Arundel County budget. The shelter plays a vital role in our community, but is constantly challenged to improve facilities, staff, and function. I urge the council to support the anticipated reorganization and provide the funds necessary to make it a success. The director is asking for 4 new staff positions and professional software for more effective and efficient operation of the shelter. Please support these additions. Recognizing that software is only a tool, I urge the council to support the additional resources and budget to ensure successful integration and the use of the software. That includes intensive initial support from the vendor and budget for staff training. The shelter facility is over 20 years old, and it shows. It was inadequate for its time. Its essential functions have been raided and subsumed by adjacent construction. There's only passing descriptive mention of the animal care and control in Plan 2040. It is worth considering that animal care and control, continued high cost of maintenance, and the restrictions on efficient and safe operation will show a better return on investment in a new shelter. The question has lingered for years, and it's past time to put a marker in the capital budget, put it before the Planning Advisory Board, and to at least examine the need, the outcomes, and the investment in a new shelter. Please consider these thoughts on your deliberations on the budget, and thank you for your time and your service to the county.
I apologize. Is C.J. Barnett Jr. in attendance this evening? Signed up to speak? Okay. So our final few speakers will be William Shepling, Dwayne Raynor, Mark Gass, and Leah Paley.
Good evening. My name's Bill Shepling, and I've been a member of the Fraternal Order of Police for 42 years. I retired in 2009 with 27 years of service to the Anne Arundel County Police Department, and I'm a resident of District 3. I've been an active member keeping up with the brothers and sisters who remain on the job. I hear about what they have to face day-to-day basis, and I'm in disbelief. We didn't get paid much back then, but it was a living. It was a wage that could start and grow a family. But times have changed. Our county has grown in leaps and bounds, but our police department and its salaries simply have not kept up. Sir, when you took office, one of your biggest promises to our community was you were going to grow the police department staffing. 5 years ago, in January 2020, there was 599 active line level officers serving our community. Today, January 2025, there are still only 599 active line level officers serving our community. This is a total growth of none. We hope you will take the urgent needed steps to ratify this problem. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dwayne Rayner, and I'm a board member of the Anne Arundel County Fraternal Order of Police. Our FOP has been fighting for the recruitment and retention of police officers in our county. Thank you, Mr. Volke, for your vote to help us recruit experienced lateral officers to our county by offering them pension buy-in. This actually saves the county money on training costs. Also, Mr. Volke, I'd like to thank you again for voting in favor of the property tax credit to try and keep the officers retired and active to remain living in the county, Anne Arundel County. Our agency will soon start hiring officers before their training starts, to begin familiarization and, most importantly, to avoid losing them to job offers from other jurisdictions while they wait for their academy class to begin. Mr. Pittman, these ideas are not coming from your administration. They are coming from our FOP members. We feel alone in trying to solve this hiring retention crisis. Our negotiations team is forced to negotiate our contract like we're buying a car, positioning, maneuvering, gaming. You promised us collaboration over and over again. You promised to sit down with us and solve the problem together. We feel like we're the only ones working to find ways to staff our police department to the levels that you want. What are your ideas? What are your solutions? If you haven't got any, then it's time you and your administration stop fighting against our ideas and our solutions. Thank you.
You can smile, gentlemen. I'm last. I'm last. Oh, I'm not last? All right. There's only one more. Good evening. My name is Mark Gass. I'm the first vice president of the Anne Arundel County Fraternal Order of Police. I am here to talk to you about the staffing crisis that plagues our police department. Please believe me when I tell you this is a crisis. For the past year, our chief and her command staff have been doing everything they can to address the critical shortfall of officers we have in our police department. We have begun to cut services, fewer community outreach and engagement events, fewer detectives investigating crimes that torment our citizens, fewer full-time crisis intervention officers to focus on the mental health and well-being of our most vulnerable citizens. You have said our police department needs at least 1,100 officers. That means right now we are 350 officers short. The FOP has brought ideas and solutions. Yes, they do cost money. We have also said that public safety is the most fundamental obligation of government. So how do we fix this problem? It's economics 101, supply and demand. We need 350 more cops. Demand is high. The unemployment rate is 3.1%. Supply is low. The cost for the police officer, the person who puts their mental, physical, and legal well-being in jeopardy every day, has gone up. We are failing to compete in today's labor market to uphold government's most fundamental obligation, keeping its citizens safe. You have been warned and warned. You publicly stated that you understood the problem, and yet every year we have to sit down with your personnel office and retell the same story. We are fighting and fighting for salaries and benefits that will attract people to this profession and to this county police department. Why are we fighting? Don't we want the same thing? Don't we have the same goal? Let's work together. Let's collaborate and cooperate. Let's start right now to achieve our shared goals for the citizens and guests of this county. Thank you.
The
real last person is here. Thank you so much for having me this evening, allowing me the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate these forums. My name is Leah Paley. I am the CEO of the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. And you were fortunate enough to hear from one of our board members who spoke very eloquently about the need. I do want to again express our gratitude to the county for including $1.5 million in the budget last year, which allowed us to meet our mission, providing healthy, fresh, nourishing food. We're currently doing that, and we intend to do it next year, and we need your help. We need $1.5 million included in the budget. We know you have some difficult decisions to make, and as Joanne mentioned, this is not a want, this is a need. This is a basic essential, and without food, people cannot thrive, children cannot be successful. Joanne mentioned that over 51,000 instances of assistance are being met through our network of partners every single month. That's actually higher by, I'm trying to find by place, 6% last year at this time, and 19% more than 2 years ago. And prior to the pandemic, in that year prior, it's actually 85% higher than it was in that year. And specifically within District 3, last year we provided over 28,000 instances of assistance, and we looked at how that compared to last year. It's actually up 43%. Some of that has to do with the fact that we've expanded our network of partners, and the funding from the county truly has allowed us to do that, but it's also about the need. Over half of the people who are food insecure in our county don't even qualify for food assistance benefits, so they can't even get SNAP. They're over the income threshold, and yet they're food insecure. I don't know how that makes sense, but it does, and it's happening. We've distributed over 4 million pounds of food last year. That's almost double what we did in the year before the pandemic, but it's actually less food per person than it was then. So we just ask you to consider including that 1.5 million in the budget so that we can continue to meet our mission. And thank you for all that you do.
Now we will open the floor for anyone who has not yet spoken. If you would like to present your budget request, please line up behind the microphone now.
Hi, my name is Kurt Svensson. I live in Arnold, Maryland. I don't like paying taxes. I don't like going to the dentist, but I willingly do both. Furthermore, I do not believe Anne Arundel County taxpayers are overtaxed. A review of the data confirms that, especially when compared to other jurisdictions. However, as a citizen, I respect the will of the county voters and their approval of the property tax revenue cap. One might argue the tax cap no longer has any meaning now that the state legislature has thumbed its nose to the concept of home rule for charter counties by allowing local tax caps to be circumvented to the extent they fund local school boards in excess of maintenance of effort amounts. I worked for the Anne Arundel County government for 25 years, 10 of which as the assistant budget officer. I was there in County Executive Pittman's first year in office. I pushed against the will of my peers and insisted that we present to the new county executive the rationale he ultimately used to support his proposal to exceed the property tax cap in his first budget. In short, it was a one-time corrective reset, equating to a recovery of the revenue lost due to decisions by previous county politicians to set rates lower than the cap. That card has been played. If the county executive and county council set a property tax rate for FY26 that exceeds the now correctively reset voter-approved tax cap, they too are thumbing their nose to the will of the county voters. There's no other rationale. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jeff Rice. I live in Pasadena in the Sunset Beach community, and my concern, especially over the last week, is our budget for snow removal. It seems like the past couple years, maybe something's changed in the policy in the county, If you go to the website, it says in community streets, they considered cleared streets to be one pass with a plow. So there's one lane, and there's still packed snow and ice. And this is unsafe for cars in the neighborhood, unsafe for people walking in the neighborhood. Since my community is right next to Sunset Beach Elementary, my kids have to walk to and from school. And even today, 8 days after the snowstorm, there is still packed snow and ice at the dead end of Clover Hill Road that dead ends right next to the school. So the kids are getting dropped off, or they're walking through packed snow and ice that's unsafe. And we saw last week, I was out of town during the snowstorm on Monday, but I came home. Fort Smallwood Road was completely clear on Tuesday evening. All the main roads seemed completely clear, but the neighborhood streets were not. And I have a family member that works for maintenance for the county, and I asked him, when did you stop doing snow removal? He said on Tuesday. But then schools were closed on Wednesday. Schools were delayed on Thursday. Schools were delayed again on Friday. So if the roads are too unsafe for the kids to go to school, why are we stopping treating the roads for the snow and ice? To me, the policy should be, if the kids still can't go to school, the workers should be out there still treating the streets to make it safe for them to go to school. So it needs to be a policy change. As long as the streets are still unsafe for school, it's still unsafe for the citizens. And just one last thing, as a private citizen, if you have a business or you're a homeowner with a sidewalk, you're required by law to clear your sidewalk or clear your business so it's safe for customers or safe for residents to walk. If someone were to slip and fall, you would be liable if they got injured. But if I slipped and fell walking my dog on a county street, who would be liable? If my kids slipped and fell and hurt themselves on the street, who would be liable? I would think the county could potentially be liable, and all the taxpayers would be responsible for those damages. So I think for public safety and to keep schools open, let's make sure we clear the streets.
Hi, my name is Aaron Mall. I'm here to support my brothers and sisters in TAC, but I'm here to talk about bikes. I live in Elizabeth Landing, which is between Sunset Elementary School and Northeast High School and the Riviera Beach Library. And we bought our house in large part because we wanted our daughter to be able to walk to school, and she could because there was this beautiful path between our neighborhood and Sunset, and it connected onto the neighborhood to the north, and it was great. She walked to school. She now goes to Brooklyn Park Middle. She's in the Apex program, and she picks up a bus at Riviera Beach Library, and she can't safely get there because there is no safe walking path or biking path between our neighborhood and less than a half a mile away, the Riviera Beach Library. So I investigated a little bit. I went to the Anne Arundel County website, found the Walk and Roll Anne Arundel 2023 plan, saw that there is a plan for a mixed-use biking, walking path, got so excited. And then I looked at the 2013 plan and the 2003 plan, and I realized that there was also a path in those two plans in my same area. I think that Anne Arundel County has done a really great job of making some plans for walking and biking, maybe not so good a job at funding and completing a lot of these projects. So I want to recommend that the plan that was put forward by Bike AAA, the bike advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, take a look at that plan, especially the projects that talk about filling the gaps between existing bikeable areas. We need to get to a place in my community where a lot of people will consider walking and biking instead of hopping in the car. That reduces traffic for everybody. And also, we've talked a lot tonight about needing to hire more teachers, needing to hire more police officers. I know that young people want to live in walkable, bikeable communities. So the more we can do to create those kind of spaces here, the more young professionals that we're going to hire to the area, and the better place it's going to be for everybody. Thanks very much.
I'm last. Good evening. My name is Cindy Klaus, and I have lived in Pasadena all my life. I also run my family's feed and farm supply business here. My husband and I moved to Woodholm Circle in 1989. Mr. Pittman wrote in a January 10th email, yes, I read it, the speakers at these town hall meetings testify, lack of funding in one area or another has caused harm. He responded, most of what is asked for doesn't fit with the revenues we project. I'm not here to ask for more spending, but less. The Woodhome residents need safe access on and off Jumpers Hole Road. Speed and volume are the main factors for this problem. Perhaps speed cameras would slow traffic. Height restrictions would deter larger trucks, helping with noise and eliminating the cut-through. Boulder lines and markers for awareness of the narrow road, which may provide added pedestrian safety. Traffic calming humps could also be considered. The county is proposing a traffic signal at the private development Creekstone. Traffic engineering commented at the last information meeting that this project will add more congestion and may not benefit Woodhome's accessibility or safety. Please hold back funding on the Jumpers Hole Road project until a solution for all is addressed. It could end up a cluster like Jumpers Hole by LA Fitness and Chick-fil-A, and far more costly than restoring a few paint lines to the original design. The project dollars saved here could be better spent on special education, public safety, or snow removal. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for the great dialogue tonight. If you have any additional budget comments to share, please email them to budget-comments@aacounty.org. Now I'll turn it back over to our elected officials for closing remarks. We'll begin with Councilman Volke.
No. So again, sorry, year 7. We've done so many of these that they run together, but it's exciting to be out here and hear from everybody and get the feedback. I will say we consistently see a number of groups show up every year. So I want to give kudos to Animal Care and Control, the Friends of Animal Care and Control, who are here every year, right? School health nurses, Ms. Shiflett, who's here. Usually she has a big contingent with her, but she's representing again. Is cold, that's right. The Teachers Association is always here. Our police officers are always here. Our firefighters are always here. So I do want to thank all of them for coming out and advocating, because every year, whatever is going on, they are here to ask to make sure that their needs are met. A couple interesting things that, and the county exec and I usually do this, we point out things that we heard so you know we were listening, right? But on top of that, we also sometimes do hear things that are unique and new and we haven't heard before. But I will address a couple points that I can answer right off the bat. To the gentleman, who I don't know if he's here now, but for Elizabeth's Landing, that project, the sidewalk project, has been in the works for years. It's also been funded for years. Unfortunately, Fort Smallwood Road, Route 173, as you know, has a number. When you see a road with a number, you know that is a state highway. And so unfortunately, we are having to wait while State Highways works on that. So that is a collaboration between county and state. Former County Executive John Leopold lives in that community and for years was the president of that HOA. I own a home in that community because I used to live in that community. And so he was on me a lot about it. That project will happen. It's just a matter of when the state can get it together. And they have kicked the can down the road probably at least for the last 5 years. So I just wanted to point that out to him. There was a question about the snow removal. So I will tell you, we've not had really big snows for a number of years, and the county exec can talk about this. DPW can talk about this more. I see people who know a lot about this in the room. But I will tell you that our contractor workforce, as I understand it, struggled quite a bit this time, and we have other jurisdictions that are competing for those resources, trying to get those same people. It's not an excuse. It's not to say that we shouldn't do a better job, because we should. But I will tell you that has been a significant challenge, and that has been a challenge not just in District 3, but across the county. I've talked to Councilwoman Fiedler quite a bit about this, Councilwoman Ledbetter, both of whom I know are dealing with similar issues. There was another person asked early on, trying to see the specific comment. I'll have to find it, but there was another question that someone asked specifically that I wanted to address. But I do want to point out, I appreciate the work that Mr. Thompson did, coming in and having done his homework to show that there has been a significant growth in terms of the budget, and there do need to be questions asked about, are we getting the return for our investment that we believe that we're getting? And in some regards, that probably goes without a whole lot of backup, but in other ways, we do need to look at that, because that's part of us being good stewards of your money. So that's really important too. With that, we've heard the comments, we've heard the feedback. I will say, unfortunately, the county exec has in some ways the tougher and in some ways the easier job, right? Tougher in the sense that he has to cull through all of these different requests and make the initial budget proposal. Easier in the sense that he gets to do all that privately. When we, as the county council, have to do these deliberations, we have to do them publicly in front of all of you. And you have to see us tell people no. And you have to see us take those votes. Whereas they get the good fortune of doing it in a conference room and being able to talk about it. So we will continue to work over the next roughly 5 months as we work on this process, both from the county exec side and then from the council side. I look forward to seeing what he proposes, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
So I want to say something about the process from here on out. You heard from Chris, but the other part after these budget town halls that I do and my team does is that each department head comes in with a budget request, and the budget office has told them what their base budget should be based on. I know Kurt is over here giggling because he's been there. But based on increased costs, based on whether or not things, positions should be removed that aren't filled and things like that. But then they come in with supplemental requests, things that they want to do that they make a case for that require extra money. And we go department by department by department by department. The budget office makes recommendations. They have people who've really dug into each of these departments. And then ultimately there's usually you go through all of them and then you see how it adds up and you keep a tally about what we can afford as we go. And then there's some towards the end usually where it's a maybe. We have a maybe category. And I really will say that what we've heard at budget town halls really impacts that maybe category, maybe more than anything else. And things have gotten funded as a result of this. The town halls are partly to lobby me and the council person who's sitting next to me, in this case, Councilman Volke. But they are also, you may have noticed, that you're talking to each other as well. And it is the neighbors. I've heard a lot of stories about people who came in here to advocate for one thing and walked out feeling like they're ready to advocate for some other things as well. So you're pitching to your neighbors. And I know some of the county employees and the unions that represent county employees, the FOP and the firefighters and TAC and others are here advocating to the public as well. Because it really is the public ultimately that is going to, even though they're not in the room when I'm meeting with the department heads, they do see the final product, and I'm accountable for what's in that final product. There is a good collaborative relationship with the council. They can't by law add things to the budget other than the school board budget, just willy-nilly. We have to introduce it, but we do. I mean, we do it. The council members come to us and we figure out if there's a way to pay for it because of some savings somewhere else. And so it is a collaborative process between the council and the county executive's office, and we make a point of making that happen. But I really want to thank you for being here, and I want to encourage you to continue to do the organizing, the advocating among neighbors and other advocates and alliances and build coalitions around some of these issues that you've got. There are some increases in some areas that are going to happen, increased spending. We know that. And we're lucky that $100 million in additional recurring revenue that they're projecting that we get this year, that's a pretty big number. And that's a reflection of the state of our economy in Anne Arundel County, the fact that businesses want to be here, people want to be here, and revenues are coming in. And the fact that we're able to grow our budget and our economy while still having the lowest tax rates in the region, providing the same kinds of services that most of our neighbors have, is I think, a testament not just to the smart policies that this administration has done, but if you go back, really conservative budget policies from years past in Anne Arundel County. And so I want to thank my predecessors for that. At the same time, they did leave some agencies woefully underfunded for the services that are being provided. And when you look at the growth of government, you're not just looking at, it's not just, fluff. It is that demands have increased. So if you look at mental health challenges in our schools, teaching some of these young kids, there are far more that are in special ed than used to. There are far more calls to the fire department from EMS. There are far more calls to the police department. In some ways, for lots of reasons that we could talk about forever, the needs have grown and demands on government have grown. And so that's what we're trying to keep up with. We will, move on, do the next step, do all these budget town halls, hear from all the departments, come out with a budget proposal. You'll see it, and then he's right. You go after these guys and make sure you attend the meetings and continue to push. So thank you, everybody, and stay safe. Oh, let me say something about the snow removal really quick as well, because first of all, it is true that it's harder to get contractors. We have relied, about in a big snow, we like to get 150 or so contractors out there. We've had about a 35% decline in contractors that do snow removal, because if you think about how little snow we've gotten over the last few years, you can go out and buy all the equipment, get the insurance and all of that stuff, and there's no snow all winter, and so you don't have any revenue. So there are fewer everywhere companies that are doing that, and there's competition among a lot of governments and others to try to get them. But we did not stop on Tuesday. So calls have continued to come in for salt in areas where there's ice and for removal in areas, and the crews have continued to go out there past Tuesday. Most of the work was done up, Monday and Tuesday, of course. But my first snow when I was in office, it all melted really quickly, and people congratulated me for what a great job we did, and I didn't deserve that. This is not melting, and but you can continue to call in requests for removal, and Public Works is still at it, and they're still trying to remove snow and ice. Thanks.